But there was peace in my heart that has not left for 30 plus years. There's been turmoil around. There's been anxious moments. There's been grief-stricken moments. There's been troubled moments. But that peace never left. Because I didn't just know about God. I knew Him. I knew Him on a personal level. I now had a relationship with Him. And just like Eliphaz says here, if you acquaint yourself with Him, you will be at peace. It's the promise of God. Jesus said, peace I give you. My peace I give you. Not like the world gives. The peace that the world gives is absence of conflict. I'm not absent of conflict in my life. It still pops up. But there is a peace that is beyond human comprehension. Why should someone in the midst of turmoil find peace? Why should someone in the face of some situation that causes grief or trouble find in their heart that they are not anxious? That makes no sense here. But it is the wisdom of God that He gives us peace that carries us through things that the world can't come up with a solution, can't come up with the peace to carry us through that thing. He says, receive instruction from His mouth and lay up His words in your heart. Man, that's what I'm telling you every Sunday morning. Lay up these words in your heart. Know them. Get to know them. Read it. Read the whole thing cover to cover. How many books have you ever bought other than the Bible that you just read parts of it? You know, just like, oh, let's see, I think I'll read chapter 17 today. Not the whole thing, but part of it. This is the only book that people do that to. Well, I'm going to read these 4 sentences today. Well, but do you know how the story began in the beginning? Do you know how the story ends? And do you know the whole plot line all the way through? It's fascinating. It's amazing. It's instruction. It's food for us. Lay up His word in your heart, Eliphaz says. And he's absolutely right. He says, if you return to the Almighty, you will be built up. I have known in my life turning my back to the Lord and seeking to go my own way. After knowing Him, after serving Him and deciding, I can't do this, I'm going a different way. And I also know that you can return to the Almighty. You can return to the Almighty. And when you return, He doesn't tear you down. Maybe some of you had a mother or a father who was the kind that when you did something wrong and you acknowledged it and took responsibility for it, they just continued on with the hammering you on what you did wrong and reminding you of how stupid you are because you did that wrong last week, last month, last year. They're not building you up. They're tearing you down. Maybe you've got a boss like that. Maybe you have a husband or a wife like that. That's human failing. That's not God. Return to the Almighty, and He will build you up. The theological term is to be edified, to be built up. It's part of the reason that God made the church. It's part of the reason that He wants Christians to gather together on a regular basis and study His Word and pray together and fellowship together to the point where we can get to know one another at a level where we know what's going on in each other's lives. so that there's the opportunity to build one another up, because you can say, hey, you know what? I went through something similar, and here's my experience. And hey, I've never gone through what you're going through, but man, I'm with you on this, and I'm praying for you. You call me if you have an issue, if you get to that end of your rope kind of thing, where you just want to talk. That's the building up. And that's what the New Testament says. It says that we are like living stones, being built up together into a holy habitation for God to dwell in. We're being built up together. He builds us up individually, but he also wants to build us together in those relationships. So Eliphaz, he knows. He's got it right there. What he has to say is absolutely right. But he's being absolutely stupid because Job already knows this. Job already knows this. He's trying to get Job saved. Job's way saved. Way saved. Get to know God and find peace, he says. So what does Job say back to him? Turn to chapter 23. Chapter 23. He says, Job answered and said, even today my complaint is bitter and my hand is listless because of my groaning. Man, I'm just worn out, full of bitterness. And then he says something that I think everyone in this room has probably said at one time or another. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come to his seat. I would present my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer me and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in his great power? No. But he would take note of me. There the upright could reason with him, and I would be delivered forever from my judge. I wish I knew where I could go find him. I think I'll go to Calvary Chapel first thing Sunday morning. Seek to find him. I wish I could just sit down face to face with God in this situation and hear him and let him know what's in my heart and hear what he has to say, not because I'm going to argue with him and convince him of my point, Job says, but then he would take note of me. He would hear me, and I would know he hears me. And I think that's something that we all struggle with sometimes. Or maybe it's just me. But sometimes when I'm going through something, man, I wish I could hear God's voice. A little louder than that still small voice. You know, something like a big, booming Charlton Heston, Cecil B. DeMille kind of thing, you know. Kevin, this is what you must do. You know, have you ever been there? It's like, come on, Lord, write it on the sky. Send me a letter. A little lightning, a burning bush. You've done it before. We get to that place. And you know why? It's because deep down, what we want to be able to do is we want to be in that same place where Adam and Eve were before the fall. It says that they would walk with him in the cool of the evening. Oh, man.